when it comes to ensuring the justice for Indigenous people, justice for the good people of Edmonton Centre, and that means Randy Boissonnault must resign. If he does not resign, it's incumbent upon the Prime Minister to kick someone like that out. I'm always happy to see my colleagues go on a soul-searching journey. It cannot come at a cost or expense to taxpayers. If that means him resigning in order to find his soul, then he should resign as an MP.
That's New Democrat MP Blake Desjardins there, joining calls from the Conservatives for a Liberal cabinet minister to resign. Desjardins, who is of Cree and Métis descent, says Minister Randy Boissonnault's shifting claims regarding his family's Indigenous heritage should result in him being removed as a minister. To recap, Boissonnault has identified as non-status adopted Cree, but corrected himself last week to say his adoptive mother and brother were Métis. He's also facing scrutiny for allegations that a company he formerly co-owned claimed to be Indigenous-owned when bidding for federal contracts in 2020. So should the minister resign? Let's bring in the front bench to talk about that. With me this evening, former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant. He's now the CEO of Space Canada. Former Conservative Deputy Leader Lisa Raitt is here in studio. She's the Vice Chair and Managing Director of Global Investment Banking at CIBC. CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair is with us, as is the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
It's good to see you tonight, Lisa. I'm happy to see you here in studio. I'll start with you. Should he resign?
Yeah, I think he has to. Regardless of whether or not we're friends with Randy, and I am. I like Randy an awful lot, but he's in a pickle, and if he cannot explain his way out of it, he has lost the faith, I think, of Indigenous groups across the country. And as a result, he's not going to be effective in the cabinet. And for the sake of the government, I think he does have to go. And for doing the right thing, he has to go. But I'd also say that, you know, as you lay out the issue, there is a woman who is going to serve jail time for doing something similar, claiming that she had Indigenous status in order for her daughters to receive tuition benefits or benefits of another kind. And that is being criminally prosecuted and criminally punished. I mean, these are serious matters that you have to take in an appropriate way. And if the punishment for the crime is resigning from cabinet, he's getting off easy.
Tom, I just spoke to Minister Duclos about this, and he was pretty deferential to the explanation provided so far from Minister Boissonnault, that he apologizes for sort of the confusion he has and has had over his heritage, and that he is, distancing himself from his business partner. He said he made that, Indigenous-owned claim, and he wasn't aware of it. That's what Minister Boissonnault has presented so far. Minister Duclos said, I take that as at face value, and let's move on. Do you think that is going to land as far as an argument from the government goes about keeping him in cabinet?
No, and it's further evidence that we're into a fin de regime, the end of the Liberal regime, when you can't even get something like this right. These things are usually handled quickly and cleanly. And right now, nothing gets handled in the PMO. It gets handed off. And then it's a water torture. It drips out day after day with a new article that shows that the umpteenth explanation he's come up with to try to claim some sort of Indigenous heritage doesn't wash either. And so it's just been horrible to watch. He should have been gone a while ago, especially, as Lisa correctly points out, around the whole issue as to whether or not his company was allowed to make the claim of indigeneity in order to get access to those government contracts that required such. So I've rarely seen anything so badly handled, frankly. And I heard your whole interview with Minister Duclos, but he kept insisting that Randy Boissonnault had been clear. He's been clear on this. He's been anything but clear. It's just been a succession of different versions that he shaped changes to try to adapt to what's been in the papers the day before. It doesn't wash. Nobody believes it. And at this point, this is the foundation of our government. It's ministerial responsibility. Right now, there are 6 ministers who are not coming back, who have left. I mean, so many people are doing double duty. Lots of areas have not been filled. The cabinet is like a Swiss cheese. Boissonnault will be the 7th. It's high time Trudeau did something to start trying to replace him. But he should start by getting rid of Boissonnault, who's just going to hurt him. The real reason he's there is there's only one other Liberal MP from Alberta. And he has his own problems going back to the last campaign. He'd be very quick to name. So they're just trying to stick with Boissonnault, but it makes no sense politically. And frankly, it makes no sense morally either.
Yeah, I mean, to Tom's point, Brian, the Prime Minister was asked, he's in Brazil at the G20 this morning, kind of should he stay in cabinet? And he said, oh, Minister Boissonnault has, explained himself, and he's spoken about that, and I'm happy with the job he's doing looking after jobs and employment, and he mentioned Alberta as well. Is this a case of, like, if there is this cabinet shuffle, which we know is coming at some point, maybe not this year, but even into early next year, is this a case of Minister Boissonnault gets shuffled out for sure then? And if it waits that long, is there damage in the interim?
Well, that's definitely one of the options that they have, given I think my two colleagues' lay of the land and sort of the reaction so far. So they could be looking at some of their options and say, look, we can push him out, we can have a talk with him to say that he should resign, or we could use a cabinet shuffle to make it happen, which maybe allows him to save face a little bit. On the politics, I mean, I think we can't ignore the fact, and I think Tom's absolutely right to point out, there's very few MPs for the Liberal caucus and the Liberal government in Alberta, so that's mildly a consideration. I don't know to what extent, but I'm sure that's something that's weighing on their minds in the sense that, look, we have these very limited seats and we need voices there from a government point of view, and from a political point of view, we need a bit of a foothold in the area, so in the province, so I'm sure that's a part of it. This is an interesting way of saying it. I mean, I'm sort of, to be honest, unclear on exactly what happened. I looked up and I tried to read some of the articles to fully understand. And I think if I'm unclear, certainly it looks like the minister has a bit of a window here where his team and the Prime Minister are behind him. I certainly would encourage him to just go back out and explain from A to Z what has happened and address all of these things. And if he has good reason and good sort of apologies to how this has transpired, maybe he'll have a shot of stopping this train. But it certainly feels like the train has momentum. And I agree. I don't think it's been very well explained. To be fair, I don't really know what happened, to be honest, even reading the stuff. And it sounds like maybe he's not sure. I understand he's adopted. I'm not even sure that's true, by the way. So if that's the case, maybe that's played a role in him not understanding his lineage. I don't know. So all that to say, there seems to be a little bit of a political window where he could maybe go out again and try his best to really explain exactly what happened, be apologetic, and hope that stops the momentum.
It's a perfect point, Rob, to note that, as I said at the beginning of the show, we have requested an interview with Minister Boissonnault 5 times since November the 10th, exactly with that pitch. Please do come on and correct the record if there is one to correct, and put yourself on the record about all these accusations you face. Like I said, his office has declined each and every one of those instances.
Yeah, I mean, Vassy, Brian is right. The air needs to be cleared. But I think that Lisa and Tom are right that the minister is a goner. This just does, it just feels like this is unraveling very slowly. I mean, and it's a serious issue. Remember, we've had in this country famous novelists, famous TV creators, famous judges, famous academics, all of whose Indigenous identity has turned out to be overstated, shall we say. And that has led to huge career consequences for those folks. And here in politics, where you think we almost have a lower bar for that, it's amazing that this minister is still there. I mean, I understand the geography and the political need to have someone from Alberta in the cabinet. I get that. And I gather that he's been an effective-ish minister of employment. But I think at a certain point, how much damage is he doing to a government that really can't afford any further damage, Vassy? This is, they're 20 or 15 to 20 points behind the Conservatives in the polls. Do they want to keep going down this spiral? I know there's going to be a cabinet shuffle, and I guess the dangling of that cabinet shuffle has been at least effective in quelling the dissent in the ranks. It would seem, because everyone's behaving themselves in off chance that they might get a car and some staff. But I think this is really, really a bad look.